Psalm 83, what is that war about? I want to talk about that. Could we be seeing that before our eyes? Could it have already started with the invasion of Gaza and Hamas being taken care of? Well, this is coming out of Zero Hedge. IDF now prepares ground invasion. They've softened it with their air resources, F-35s, bombing runs, of course. They started it off with the explosions of the pagers. I think when we look at Psalm 83, I think you'll find it very interesting what it says about the faces of the enemy and what the pagers did to them. We're going to take a look at that. But this says, after Hezbollah's launch of an Iran-made ballistic missile on Tel Aviv, the first of the war, which we detailed earlier, Israel is preparing to activate 2 reserve brigades for ongoing operations on its northern front with Lebanon. A fresh statement from Israeli Defense Forces says boosting forces with reserve manpower will enable the continuation of the fighting against Hezbollah. So the ground invasion has started. They are proceeding. This is obviously a significant step, and this is what we said. You know, the first thing they do is they take a look at your communications before actual war starts. Why? Because that confuses you. That debilitates you. That means you can't organize and instruct and get your troops together and come up with a plan to come against your invaders. And that's exactly what happened. They took out the communications. How do we know World War III has started? When your internet goes down, when your cell phone stops working. And maybe you'll get a message from the government saying all is awesome. Your cell phone will work in a few minutes. Stand by. When you get that message, look out. The nukes are probably in the air, to be absolutely honest. This is what happened in Israel. It's a perfect example of world wartime strategy as it relates to blinding your enemy before you strike and taking care of or removing energy sources and communications, and they will strike the satellites first. Again, you'll hear of satellites being blown up before you hear of nuclear weapons inbound. So this is crosswalk.com. And I want to read it. This is Joel Rosenberg. He speaks about the Psalm 83 war. It says, a modern-day war between Israel and Gaza mirrors the events described in Psalm 83. Psalm 83 addresses God and describes enemies who lay crafty plans against your people and consult together against your treasured ones. In verse 4, the enemies say, come, let us wipe them out as a nation. Let the name of Israel be remembered no more. What does the world want to do when the Antichrist is around? Well, they want to remove Israel from being a nation. They want to get them out of there. All the world comes against Israel in the last days, to the point where the IDF is overwhelmed and God has to intervene. And that's only going to happen when the Jews say, okay, we've got nothing left. Our IDF can't defend us. And then they call upon the name of the Lord, and that's when God comes and helps them, basically. That's when they recognize God as Messiah. Verse 6 and 8, it says, Psalm 83, tell exactly where the various enemies of Israel and the Jewish people live. So you talk about the inner circle and the outer circle of nations. That's a Bill Salas comment. And Psalm 83 describes the nations that are involved in the attack. Now, maybe not all at the same time, but these are all the nations who are kind of lined up against Israel. So it says the Edom, the Ishmaelites, Moab, the Hagrites, the Gebal, Ammon, Amalek, Philistia, Tyre, and Assyria. The tents of Edom and the Ishmaelites, that's southern Jordan, says Joel, and Arabia. Moab and the Hagrites, that's central and northern Jordan. Gebal and Ammon and Amalek, that's Lebanon and Syria and the Sinai Peninsula. Philistia, this is the Palestinians, of course, the Gaza Strip, with the inhabitants of Tyre, and that's sections of Lebanon. Assyria also has joined in with them, and that's, of course, Syria. And we know the prophecy from Isaiah 17, the destruction of Damascus. When Syria gets involved, Israel's going to say, that's it, we're not going to put up with this, and they destroy Damascus. And then Lebanon and Iraq. So militants, terrorists from Iraq, and proxies of Iran. And it says, the writer of Psalm 83, Rosenberg, wrote, Well, let's go here first. So this is Bill Salas, and so what he says about Psalm 83, and he wrote a book on it. And this is where the idea of the inner circle of nations. Psalm 83, let's see. He says, the missing prophecy revealed that the prophets did not speak about, that's a book he wrote. I point out about 150 verses that I think apply to the prophets addressing these very population groups from Psalm 83. Edomites, Ammonites, Moabites, Gebal, Assyria, and Ishmaelites, Hagarenes. He says, I put maps in the book, of course, of who they are. They're the Arab states sharing common borders with Israel. I call them the inner circle. And the inside of that inner circle, you've got terrorist populations, which have evolved, such as Hezbollah, Hamas, and of course the Palestinians. And he says, go read the book. He's talking against Dr. Ice, who has a different idea of the Psalm 83 prophecy, but that's where it came from, this inner circle of nations. And Israel's going after this inner circle, which are these terrorist organizations, these Iranian proxies, right? Now, here's the interesting thing. Recently, of course, what do we have that kicked off the war in Lebanon? Well, we had this pager explosion. And device explosions, which not only blew apart the hips of some of the people as they were carrying pagers on their hips, but also the pagers rang twice and showed the number that that was ringing them on them. So they would grab this pager off their wrist, out of their pocket. They would bring it up to their face. They would look at it, look at the number who was calling them, because they would have to call back. That would be their commander or someone telling them, okay, get ready for this or that, or here's the next plans for Hezbollah and the militants, and here's the operation, right? But what the pagers did is people, and there's some high-ranking Iranian IRGC members as well that it happened to. When they brought that pager up, it exploded in their face and actually injured their eyes. Now, what I want to bring to you is this statement by Joel Rosenberg, and I think it's interesting. And it says, the writer of Psalm 83, Rosenberg, wrote, ask God to destroy enemies like whirling dust, like chaff before the wind. But the writer also wants God's enemies to repent and turn to him, Rosenberg said. Verse 16 says, fill their faces with shame that they may seek your name. O Lord, fill their faces with shame. Were their faces filled with shame? Their faces were filled with something, and they've got a permanent mark on their face, even losing eyes. Now, will they recognize God as Creator God? Hard to say, but I think it's interesting that Psalm 83 seems to describe in a physical way what happened to the faces of that inner circle, those terrorist organizations that came against Israel. They have on their faces the shame. They will be now forever recognizable as long as they live as Hezbollah members who had pagers on their person, looked at them, and then they exploded, and they will have scars there. So, I'm reading in between the lines here, but I think it's an interesting verse 16 there of Psalm 83. Nonetheless, so ground forces rolling towards Lebanon. This is, again, another escalation. Watch Israel. The fight isn't necessarily about Ukraine and Russia. That's not the important thing, rather, in Bible prophecy. It's the Middle East. It's Isaiah 17, destruction of Damascus. When the battle moves on to Syria, they go from the inner circle, from the closest people on their border, Gaza, to Lebanon. Who's the next in line? Probably Syria. And out from there into the outer circle of nations, and all the various 10 nations described in Psalm 83. So that's kind of a short overview of the Psalm 83 prophecy, and I think we could be seeing it come to pass. Slowly, in slow motion, you look at Bible prophecy and you look in the past when prophecy happened, and it looked like it happened in the blinking of an eye, because we can read it from beginning to end in a couple of seconds, right? But in the history of man and in real lifetimes, these things kind of roll out when they're if they were to be added to the Bible after the fact, the whole Psalm 83 war seems like it would have taken 30 seconds. But as we are living it out, we are watching it happen before our eyes, and it could very well be actually playing out. And we are living in biblical times. I've said that before, incredible times. be prepared. And always remember, when communications go down, that is the time to be very concerned, because you don't know what happened. And we see a lot of cyber attacks, hacking going on that have taken out computer systems. You look at that last CrowdStrike hack that took out computer systems, blue screened them. It would be very easy. The fact that Israel was able to intercept and add explosives to pagers and walkie-talkies, how much more could Russia or China be doing to any device that we have? How many backdoors are there to all our electronic equipment that where they could disable it or spy on us, right? So be prepared. Everything is watching, everything is listening, everything can be disabled. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe if you haven't yet, and we'll see you in the next video.